Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we have the final, absolute final piece of the puzzle for the current Artic Figures Indiegogo campaign, as we've got the Kem Kem Plesiosaur. Now this looks as epic as it honestly gets, and potentially might be my favorite of all of the Artic figures that he has released so far. Like, I honestly didn't expect that to be the case, but the moment that I got this figure in the mail and I pulled it out of the packaging, I've been in love with it. I can't stop checking it out. I can't stop moving the articulation. It is just insanely, insanely cool. Probably because we don't really get articulated marine reptiles like this very often, and especially such beautifully sculpted and very highly articulated figures. And again, it's just something that's so different from what Artic Figures has produced so far, as he's never produced a, to my knowledge anyway, marine reptile. So it was super exciting to see how good of a job he could do on it. And actually having this here again, it's even more impressive, I think, just checking out how high quality and how overall beautifully sculpted and articulated this figure is. It really is a fantastic addition to the current Indiegogo campaign, and I'm extremely excited to get it painted up. But before we do that, we're going to go ahead and jump to a closer look at it right now. So, starting up here at the head sculpt, you can straight away see that the head sculpt looks incredible. Like how nicely sculpted the overall skull shape and everything is. It is just gorgeous. You can also see the eye is sculpted out really quite nicely. We have the nostrils up there on the top of the snout. The mouth, of course, does articulate. The jaw works quite nicely as far as the articulation goes. You can close it and open it really, really nicely. And again, for something so small, if my camera focuses on it, the fine detail is crazy, crazy impressive. Look at how small those teeth are, but yet look at how incredibly well done they are sculpt-wise. Like, they look phenomenal. If you look here on the inside of the mouth, you can also see, again, if my camera would focus on it, it's so small that my camera just does not want to focus on it. There you can kind of get a look at the inside of the mouth, the detail contained within the teeth and everything. It all looks incredible, and then same for the lower jaw, which you probably can't see quite as nicely. It really will not focus on the tongue for some reason of this model. I don't get it at all. But again, the jaw works very nicely, and then as you begin to move through the course of the model, you start to see again the really nice looking texturing to the skin. As you move down, you've got kind of like some slight wrinkles and creases and everything in the skin. And of course, you can see the throat here on the underside of the figure. But one thing you can also probably take notice to is the fact that we have quite a bit of articulation moving down. So you've got one joint here, 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 and then here, which allows some beautiful posability in the neck of your plesiosaur. Again, you can get really nice turns in the head. You can make it a little smoother as you move it. You know, you just have to reposition the pieces, but it allows you to pretty much go any way, any shape, any position that you would like with your plesiosaur to create, again, pretty much endless diorama possibilities and posability for your figure. You can also kind of make out the spinal column here running down along the back of your plesiosaur, which also looks really quite nice. And then as you lead down here into the actual body, you can really start to see the scale detail pick up and increase in size a little bit. And look at how nice it looks. It really does pop on the sculpt quite beautifully. And just looking at it here as we move through, like, look at the structure of the body and how impressive that actual fine detail is. Incredibly, incredibly well done. You also, even though I positioned the body slightly off there, you can see the spinal column as well, continuing to run down the course of the back of the plesiosaur. You have more really nice detail as you move through. You can see more really nice scales picking up, more sort of skin wrinkles, skin folds, all kinds of incredible detail throughout the course of this plesiosaur. And then, of course, you lead down here into the flippers. The flippers as well look great as you move along the outer edge of the flippers. I love how it's not just an absolutely perfect shape. You can see some slight inconsistencies, which makes it pretty much as realistic as it gets. Again, it wouldn't be living its entire life without, you know, damaging the body up a little bit here and there. So they've done a very good job of kind of adding little tiny like chips and stuff taken out of it, which makes it add another level of realism, I think, to the figure. You can see the same thing here on the rear flipper. It looks like a real living animal more so than a model of an animal or a recreation of an animal. Like, it looks like a living, breathing creature here as far as how realistically sculpted it is. And then as you lead out here into the tail, you can also see a really nice looking tail sculpt. Very straightforward tail. You can see it's sticking straight out. There's no curvatures because that would be up to you to kind of move the tail and articulate it pretty much however you would want, because again, you have that area of articulation out there. And then as we move through the body, you could probably take notice of the fact that we have flippers which also articulate. You can see you can go up and down with them. You can also swivel. Same deal for the rear flippers. Again, that same style of articulation and everything in the flippers. And you've also got midsection articulation, which can cause you to turn the body of the plesiosaur and also can go down and up. Again, creating all sorts of posability possibilities for your model. You can also see the underside is fantastic when it comes to the fine detail. Even the undersides of the flippers, you could just see so much kind of movement in the flippers themselves, but also, again, all kinds of incredible skin texture here, moving along the underside, all sorts of skin creases. The chest and stomach are all really nicely highlighted here as you move down the course of the sculpt. We even have a cloaca down here just to add that extra bit of realism. And again, it really is an incredible, incredible model. Definitely one of my favorites for sure from Artic Figures. Maybe my favorite. I'm not positive if I can state confidently it's my favorite because there's just been so many good ones that have come from Artic Figures so far. But it is definitely an incredible model, an incredible release yet again from Artic Figures. So let's get this painted up and check it out from there. And here is our fully finished and fully painted version of the Kem Kem Plesiosaur from Artic Figures. And I'm actually pretty darn happy with the way it turned out. I really do not paint marine reptiles very often, and in fact, I think this might be maybe my second ever that I've ever painted. So, again, pretty happy with the way it turned out. I tried to capture the overall appearance of the artwork that was created, of course, by the phenomenal artist working with Artic Figures, which I highly recommend you guys check out. I will include a link in the description to his Instagram as well, where you can check out the amazing art that he creates, because he doesn't just work with Artic Figures, he creates all kinds of absolutely gorgeous artwork, so I really recommend checking him out. But if you look here at the image of the artwork created for this release, again for the Kem Kem Plesiosaur, I tried to kind of recreate the color scheme that you see in the artwork here on my version, and again, I'm pretty happy with the way it turned out. I think for the most part, it's captured the overall appearance of it, and even though it's a little, hard to get a good idea of what the paint scheme is just from that image alone, I kind of tried to replicate what I saw and add a little bit of my own personal touch. And I also added the clear coat that I put on it in a slightly glossy sort of a way to give it that kind of wet look like you would like to see for a marine reptile. But again, the entire thing just looks super, super nice once you actually get some paintwork on it. It is a phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal sculpt. Hopefully the camera is really picking up on the details a little bit better now with some paint application added to it. You can definitely see the detailing is extremely, extremely impressive. Probably some of the nicest that I've ever seen in my entire life when it comes to a marine reptile. And you're probably noticing paint on my fingers and everything because I literally just finished painting this and giving it the clear coat and everything just a little bit ago. So it's very, very fresh as far as me finishing this model as a whole. But again, the details just shine so magnificently now with some paintwork on it. And really excited to have this now here in my collection. And yes, I actually did even go through the trouble, I don't know how well the camera will focus on it, but the trouble of painting out the teeth and everything on the plesiosaur just to make sure that it, the camera really hates looking at something so small, but just to make sure it looks as highly detailed as possible when it comes to my paint job. But again, couldn't even begin to stress how much I'm in love with this. Another amazing release from Artic Figures, and now having it here finished and painted, it's easily one of the most beautiful marine reptiles in my collection, potentially the most beautiful. Now, if you are not familiar with the Kem Kem Plesiosaur, it's actually a pretty darn small species of plesiosaur overall. So for a length, you were looking at, it's kind of hard to get exactly in there because of the pegs and everything in the way currently, but I'd say a little over 5 inches, maybe approaching 5¼ inches, or about 13, closing in on 13.5 centimeters in length. We're not going to get much for a height because it's a plesiosaur, so we'll jump straight to a size comparison. And here is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line next to our beautiful Artic Figures Kem Kem Plesiosaur. And you can see again it's really quite small. Pretty much what I expected at this point, but definitely if you are familiar with the species, it'd probably be about what you would expect as well. But for another comparison, and we've removed the Plesiosaur from the stands to show you what it looks like next to the hatchling Spinosaurus from Artic Figures, also a part of this Indiegogo campaign. And in the image, the artwork created for this release, the Kem Kem Plesiosaur was actually feeding on the hatchling Spinosaurus, so that's why this, I feel like, is definitely a very good, very important comparison. But for another comparison, here are the two adult Spinosaurus next to the Plesiosaur, and you can definitely see that that Plesiosaur is pretty small in comparison, so obviously the type of smaller Plesiosaur that would probably be sneaking around in the waters, of course grabbing the hatchlings. That makes complete sense. And now here's what the Plesiosaur would have to tend with once it gets caught trying to take the hatchlings, two very, very large adult Spinosaurs. There is our Plesiosaur next to the Artic Figures juvenile Spinosaurus, just for one final comparison so that we could show off a size next to the entire Indiegogo campaign pretty much. But for another comparison, here we have a size with the Elasmosaurus from Collect Day next to the Kem Kem Plesiosaur. Now the Elasmosaurus is a little bit further forward, so it might look slightly larger than it actually is in comparison, but if we go up above, again, that helps to give you a pretty good idea of the size and the fact that this Artic Figures Plesiosaur is definitely quite small. And then, even though it's not a Plesiosaur, it is an incredibly iconic marine reptile figure. We have the Walking with Dinosaurs Toyway Liopleurodon here next to the Kem Kem Plesiosaur from Artic Figures, showing you again that there is quite a massive size difference. And then for one final comparison, just to give you that one last size comparison, we have a Toy Monster International Captives Dimetrodon and a Mattel Mini Ceratosaurus here next to the absolutely gorgeous Plesiosaur, again from Artic Figures, just to iron out the fact that it is pretty darn small, but insanely impressive when it comes to sculpt and detail and articulation on a figure this small. So this brand new Artic Figures Kem Kem Plesiosaur is fantastic. First of all, I don't have any models in my collection at all of this particular version of a Plesiosaur. Secondly, wow, is Artic Figures ever awesome when it comes to sculpting out marine reptiles. I would love to see more marine reptiles from him in the future because the detailing is phenomenal on this. No matter where you look, it's as highly detailed as it could honestly get for a marine reptile while still remaining nice, naturalistic looking overall. It has really nice, vibrant detail, all sorts of skin folds and all sorts of incredible scale detail through the course of the entire figure. Really, really high quality sculpt overall, and the resin used to print it out is also as high quality as the detailing itself. Really nice, very impressive as a whole when it comes to the quality and the resin used. Again, Artic Figures uses some of the highest quality resin you would possibly imagine when creating his models so that you don't have any type of an extremely fragile figure that's going to break with the slightest turn. You don't really have that from Artic Figures. Again, very nice, very high quality as a whole. The paint job, of course, was done by me, but Artic Figures usually tries to replicate the paint jobs that I give the models when he releases them, so if you do purchase the painted version from the Indiegogo campaign, it would end up looking something similar to this because that's the coloration that he'll probably end up going with. And on top of that, you can also order this unpainted if you choose to paint it yourself, which was exactly what I did here. I painted it myself, and it was an absolute blast having an opportunity to paint a marine reptile like this, something that I really don't do very often. So one way or another, this is a massive recommendation from me, as is every other member of this Indiegogo campaign. And with only a few days left, I really highly recommend taking part in that Indiegogo campaign, grabbing yourself some Artic Figures releases, including, of course, this gorgeous Plesiosaur. So I will include a link in the description to where you can do that on the Indiegogo campaign from Artic Figures, currently live. So make sure you check that link, go take part in the Indiegogo, get yourself some either Spinosaurus or a Plesiosaur, and make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.